I've lived in this quiet suburb in Seattle for about 10 years now. It's one of those neighborhoods where everyone knows each other's business, but not in a bad way. Kids play in the streets, people walk their dogs, and the houses are mostly old but well kept. My name's Alex, and I work as a software engineer at a tech company downtown. It's a decent job, pays the bills, lets me afford my little 2-bedroom house on Elm Street. Nothing fancy, just a place to crash after long days staring at code. The house next door has always been a bit of a mystery. When I moved in back in 2015, it was already empty. The previous owners, an old couple, had passed away, and no one claimed it. Over the years, it just sat there, getting more rundown. Weeds choked the yard, paint peeled off the siding, and the windows were cloudy with dust. Kids in the neighborhood called it the haunted house, but that was just talk. No ghosts or anything silly like that. It was just abandoned, forgotten by whoever owned it. I'd mow the edge of their lawn sometimes to keep it from spilling over into mine, but that was it. The weird stuff started with Halloween. My first year here, I noticed it right away. October 31st rolled around, and suddenly the place was decked out. Pumpkins on the porch, fake cobwebs in the trees, orange lights strung along the roof, even a blow-up ghost waving in the wind. It looked like someone had spent hours on it. I figured maybe the city or some neighbor group did it to make the street look festive. But when I asked around, no one knew anything. Huh, that's odd, my neighbor across the street, Karen, said. It's been empty forever. That night, kids came trick-or-treating, and a few even knocked on the abandoned house's door. No one answered, of course. I watched from my porch, handing out candy. Around midnight, I heard noises coming from over there. Creaking floors, maybe footsteps. I chalked it up to the wind or animals getting inside. The next morning, November 1st, everything was gone. No pumpkins, no lights, nothing. The house was back to its sad, empty self. I thought it was strange, but life goes on. Work was busy and I forgot about it. The next Halloween, same thing. Decorations appeared out of nowhere. This time, there were more. Skeletons hanging from the porch, a fog machine puffing away. I decided to check it out. After work, I walked over and knocked on the door. No answer. I knocked louder, called out, "Hello? Anyone home?" Silence. I peered through a window, but the curtains were drawn, and it was too dark to see much. That night, the noises were louder, banging sounds like someone moving furniture. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if squatters were in there. But again, by morning, decorations vanished, house empty. This pattern went on for years. Every October 31st, the house transformed into a Halloween wonderland. I'd try to catch whoever was doing it. One year, I set up a cheap security camera pointed at their yard. But the feed glitched that night. Static, then nothing. The next day, the camera was still there, but no footage of anyone. I started feeling uneasy about it. My girlfriend at the time, Sarah, thought I was obsessing. "It's probably just some prankster," she said. "Let it go." We broke up a couple of years later, unrelated, but she was right. I was letting it get to me. By 2022, I'd lived with this mystery long enough. I did some digging online, searched property records on the county website. The house was owned by a guy named Robert Thompson, but he had died in 2010. No heirs listed, just sitting in limbo. I called the city, asked if they knew about the decorations. The lady on the phone laughed. "That old place? No, we don't touch private property like that." It didn't make sense. Who was going through all that trouble, and why only on Halloween? Last year, 2024, things escalated. Halloween came, and the decorations were bigger than ever. Giant spiders on the roof, tombstones in the yard with names like RIP etched on them. I was determined to figure it out. After dinner, I sat on my porch with a drink, watching. Around 8 p.m., as kids roamed the street, I glanced up at the house's upper floor. There was a window facing my place, and in it I saw a silhouette. A man, just standing there, staring right at my house. Not moving, not waving, just watching. A chill ran down my spine. I grabbed my phone, tried to snap a picture, but by the time I zoomed in, he was gone. I didn't sleep much that night. The noises were back, footsteps upstairs, doors creaking. I convinced myself it was my imagination. Morning came, decorations gone as usual. But a few days later, on November 3rd, I was raking leaves in my yard when I heard someone whistle. I looked over and there was a guy in the abandoned house's yard, picking up a stray twig. He was middle-aged, maybe 50s, wearing a flannel shirt and jeans. looked normal enough. "Hey," I called out, walking to the fence. "You live here?" He turned and smiled, big, toothy grin. "Nah, just checking on the place. Name's Mike. You must be the neighbor." "Yeah, Alex, I've been here a while. That house has been empty forever. What's the deal with the Halloween stuff?" His smile widened, almost too much. "Oh, that? Tradition, you know. Keeps the spirit alive." He laughed, but it felt forced. He started chatting about the weather, the Seahawks game, like we were old buddies. Overly friendly, asking about my job, and if I had kids. It was weird, but I played along. Finally, I pushed. "Seriously, though, who decorates it? I've seen it every year, and no one's ever there." His face changed in an instant. The smile dropped, eyes narrowed. He looked away toward the house. "It was my dad's place, Robert Thompson. He loved Halloween. Used to decorate every year, go all out. Pumpkins from the farm, the works." I nodded, remembering the name from my search. "What happened to him?" Mike sighed, rubbing his neck. "He lived here alone after Mom died. I'd visit when I could. I live in Tacoma now. But one Halloween back in 2014, he called me late at night. Sounded scared. Said he was out getting his last pumpkin from the patch down the road, and someone was following him. 'Mike, please come quickly,' he said. 'I think they're after me.'" His voice was shaking. I felt a knot in my stomach. "What did you do?" "Drove over right away. Took me about an hour. When I got here, the door was wide open. Lights on, but no Dad. Stuff was scattered, chairs knocked over, papers everywhere, like there'd been a struggle. I called the police. They searched, but found nothing. Nobody, no clues, just gone. They figured maybe he wandered off, dementia or something, but Dad was sharp, no history of that." "That's awful," I said. "So now you," he interrupted. "Every Halloween I come back. Decorate the house just like he did, hoping maybe he'll see it come home. Stupid, I know, but it's all I got." He looked so sad. I didn't push more. We talked a bit longer about random stuff, then he said he had to go. Shook my hand, grip a little too tight, and walked to a truck parked down the street. I watched him drive off, feeling sorry for the guy. Explained the decorations, the noises, probably him setting up and taking down. The silhouette? He, maybe checking the windows. It all made sense in a tragic way. But that night, I couldn't shake the unease. Lying in bed, I heard noises again. From his house? No, it was quiet over there. Maybe my mind is playing tricks. The next few days were normal. Work, gym, Netflix. I even told a couple of friends about it. Creepy, but sad, they said. Then, about a week later on November 10th, I came home late from the office. It was around 9 p.m., dark and rainy. Pulled into my driveway and something was off. My front door was wide open. Rain is blowing in. My heart pounded. I grabbed my phone, called 911, and waited in the car. "Possible break-in," I told the dispatcher. Cops showed up quick, 2 officers, flashlights out. We went inside together. The place was trashed, drawers pulled out, cushions slashed. My laptop is gone, my TV ripped off the wall, and even my watch collection from the bedroom. Cash from my safe, about $2,000, is missing. No sign of forced entry, though. The door wasn't damaged, it looked like it was unlocked. While they took my statement, I mentioned Mike, the guy from next door. He was here recently, maybe check him out. The officers exchanged looks. One, Officer Ramirez, shook his head. "Next door? That place has been empty for years. No one lives there." "No, I mean the son. Mike Thompson. He comes by for Halloween." They pulled up records on their tablet. Robert Thompson, deceased 2010, no known relatives. House is in probate, no activity. I insisted, but I talked to him. He told me about his dad disappearing in 2014. Ramirez frowned. "Sir, according to this, Robert died of natural causes in 2010. Heart attack. Buried in Greenwood Cemetery. No missing persons report, and no son named Mike in the files." My blood ran cold. What? That can't be. He was right there in the yard. They searched the abandoned house next door was unlocked, which was weird. Inside, dusty and empty, like always. No signs anyone had been there recently. Footprints in the dust? Maybe, but it could be old. Back at my place, they dusted for prints, took photos. "We'll look into it," Ramirez said. "But honestly, no one's reported missing from the neighborhood. And that house, stay clear." They left, and I barricaded the door, slept with a baseball bat by the bed. That night, noises again, from next door. Footsteps creaking and whispering. I couldn't make it out. The next day, I drove to the county office, pulled the records myself. Robert Thompson died 2010 alone. No wife, no kids. The house has been abandoned since. No missing persons file from 2014. I even checked the cemetery. His grave was there, overgrown. Who was Mike? Why the decorations? The story about the follower, the open door. It mirrored my break-in. Was he casing my place while we talked? But why the elaborate lie? I installed new locks, cameras everywhere, but every night I feel watched, from that upper window, and Halloween's coming again next year. What if he returns? Or worse, what if his dad does? It's been months now, and the police have no leads. My stuff's gone, insurance covered some, but the fear lingers. Sometimes, late at night, I hear knocking at my door. No, from inside the walls. I tell myself it's the house settling, but deep down I know something's not right. And it started with those decorations. I love October more than any other month. It's the air first, the way it feels like you can finally take a full breath after the heat of summer. It's the smell of dry leaves and cold dirt, the sharp bite of morning fog, the way a warm mug actually warms your hands again. Last year, we spent the entire month at my grandparents' big farmhouse, out where the road forgets it used to be busy. My wife and I wanted our 7-year-old son, Ethan, to have a long, simple fall. We told ourselves it was for him, but the truth is that I wanted it just as much. I grew up there. I know the creak of the back steps. I know the path that runs behind the barn, through the Johnson's old fence line, and into the pumpkin rows like a thin scar. My grandfather still ran a small pumpkin farm for Halloween. It was more habit than business by now, but people in town liked to stop by, take photos, and let their kids pick a pumpkin straight off the vine. He loved the routine, watering in the mornings, weeding a little before lunch, checking fences when it cooled down. That month, every day, we'd spend time out there with him. My wife would help my grandmother in the kitchen or set out decorations, black paper bats on string, a scarecrow with a floppy hat, a plastic skeleton on the porch rail. I'd haul hoses and inspect the vines. Ethan would run ahead, his boots bumping the dirt, pretending the low yellow leaves were tunnels. From the first week, it felt like we fell into a soft rhythm. Breakfast by the wide window, steam on the glass, coffee for us, hot chocolate for Ethan. Grandpa would push his cap back and tell the plan for the day in that measured way he had. We'd put on jackets that seemed too warm in the sun but just right in the shade. Sometimes friendly neighbors came to buy pumpkins. Sometimes it was only us, the crows, and the wind. At night, we decorated a little bit at a time. My grandmother saved boxes of old Halloween things, a faded plastic pumpkin light from the 90s, a bundle of orange string lights that always nodded themselves, a cardboard witch with a bent broom. We strung them along the porch. Ethan insisted that the scarecrow needed a better spot guarding the field. We moved it 2 or 3 times until he said it looked right. 1 row in, off to the left, where anyone walking up the path would see it first. There were small things I noticed during that second week. The first was how sometimes we'd come out in the morning, and a few vines looked flattened where no one had walked. Deer did that, sure, but there weren't hoof marks, just a scuff like someone dragged their feet or a bag. The second thing was the scarecrow. Twice I felt sure the hat sat differently, pulled down over one eye of the burlap face that we hadn't drawn a face on. It was a dumb thought. Hats slip. Wind is wind. I told myself that and tried to laugh because it was October, and people get weird about October. On Sunday we had a small crowd. A church group stopped by after services. The weather was good, bright, and cold. Kids took photos sitting on hay bales. I cut 6 or 7 pumpkins and carried them to the scale by the barn. Grandpa worked more slowly than usual, rubbing his chest like his jacket was too tight. I told him to take a break. He waved me off with a small smile and said he just needed water. We sat for a while. He told Ethan a story about a raccoon that used the barn roof like it was a road. Ethan laughed, wide open and bright. It was a good day. The next day, the fog didn't lift until late. The field looked like it was floating, the tops of the pumpkins like little boats. I got up before everyone else and stood on the back step with my coffee. It was quiet in that way that's not empty, just held. I listened to a distant truck and a single crow. When the fog thinned, I walked the rows. That's when I saw a line of prints in the damp dirt that weren't ours. Not boots with a tread. Not deer. Smooth at the sides, deep at the heel, like someone wearing flat shoes and carrying something heavy, had walked in from the far fence, crossed 2 rows, and stopped near the scarecrow. There they turned out again the way they came. I looked at the fence. The old wire sagged low enough to step over. It wasn't a big deal. Half the neighbors used paths like that. Still, something about the way the prince paused right at the scarecrow made my chest feel tight. I brushed our scarecrow's hat straight. The burlap sack head was empty and soft under my hand. I told myself to let it go. We had a busy day. 2 families came by, then my wife and I ran into town for more string lights because half of last year's didn't work. That night, after dinner, Grandpa sat down early. He said he felt a bit off. Nothing big, just tired and a little sick to his stomach. My grandmother put a hand to his forehead and said he felt warm. There was no argument about going to the doctor or the ER. He said he would see how he felt in the morning. He didn't want to fuss. I slept lightly and kept waking to little sounds I couldn't place. One was like a light knock, not at the door, more like something set down on the porch. The other was a faint rustle outside, like dry leaves moving when there wasn't a wind. Each time I sat up, held my breath, and heard nothing more. I told myself it was the string lights clicking as they cooled. October 21st started gray and cold. I remember the date because it's burned into me now. Ethan was always the first one awake at the farmhouse. He loved it there. He liked to run in socks on the wood floor and slide into the kitchen. He would open the back door and stick his head out to see if the scarecrow was still guarding. That morning, I woke up to the sound of the back door closing softly. I glanced at the clock on my phone. 6:43 a.m. I was half asleep. I thought, it's fine, he's just on the porch. The field is right there. Nothing can happen in the short minute it takes to walk from the porch to the first row. I got up, put on my jeans, and went to the bathroom. I brushed my teeth. I remember how normal it felt, because the next minutes were not normal at all, and I keep going back to that last normal thing. I was pouring cereal when I heard it. A scream, high and sharp and cut off. It was Ethan's voice, but not in the way a kid cries over a scraped knee. It had that tear to it, like a rope breaking. The spoon fell from my hand and clanged on the counter. I ran to the back door and yelled his name. I didn't even put on shoes. I jumped the steps, hit the cold dirt, and ran toward the field. My chest went small and hot. The scarecrow stood where we'd left it. The pumpkins sat big and stupid and orange. No movement. No Ethan. I shouted again, "Ethan!" It felt wrong to hear my voice bounce back off nothing. I dug through the first row and the second, my eyes trying to find any shape that looked like a little boy hiding or crouching. Then I saw it. In the third row, near the path that slips toward the old fence, a small blue sneaker lay on its side, the laces trailing in the dirt. It was his. It had the sticker residue we never fully scraped off. My legs went cold. I scooped it up and yelled for my wife so loud my throat hurt. She came fast, eyes wide, hair undone, my grandmother behind her, a hand to her mouth. I called 15, then 112, then back to 15 because my fingers were shaking and I hit the wrong button. I said the words out loud because hearing them made them feel more real and less like I was floating. "Our son is missing." He screamed. We found his shoe. The police came fast, faster than I expected, given where we are. A county deputy arrived first, then a second car, then an unmarked SUV. They moved with calm that looked slow but wasn't. One officer took my statement. Another walked the rows, careful where he stepped. My wife sat on the steps holding our son's other shoe, like it was an egg she might break if she squeezed too hard. My grandfather tried to stand and join the search, but he wobbled. My grandmother sat him down inside with water and aspirin. I felt guilty and angry about that at the same time. They asked about anyone who might want to hurt us. No, about any workers or visitors who seemed odd. I said something about the prince, about the scarecrow hat that felt different, and I heard how small it sounded, like I was trying to make a ghost out of a hat. But the deputy didn't smirk. He wrote it. He walked to the fence and took a photo of the sagging wire. Neighbors came when they heard the sirens. One of them brought a jacket I didn't know I was missing and draped it over my shoulders. Another said she saw a man walking last night along the road by the old creek turnoff, carrying something bulky, maybe a backpack or a box, moving quickly like he didn't want to be seen. She hadn't thought much of it. People walked there sometimes to fish. She felt bad saying it. The deputy didn't make her feel worse. He just asked what time. She said around 10. The sheriff arrived as they were expanding the search. He was older, steady. He set up a simple command at the tailgate of a truck. They called for a K9 unit. They asked to see our security cameras. We had nothing on the farmhouse except a cheap doorbell cam we brought with us and never installed. The sheriff pinned a printed satellite photo of the property under a magnet and traced a triangle with his finger. The farmhouse, the pumpkin field, and the tree line where the older properties started to run together. Then, some small luck. The dog picked up a scent at the spot where I'd found the shoe. It moved toward the fence. The deputy quietly asked us to stay back. They stepped over into the scrub beyond the property, through sumac and small poplar, along a narrow path that kids used in summer to get to the creek. I followed behind at a distance, trying not to trip on roots, trying not to throw up. Every sound in the woods felt like it was either Ethan calling or someone else breathing. The path bent left and rose to a little ridge. On the other side, tucked into the trees like it was trying to hide, was a structure I had seen before and never thought about. An old cabin, more a shack, where someone once stored tools. The roof was patched with sheet metal, and a small chimney leaned like it was listening to something far away. I knew it as the abandoned cabin from childhood because we'd used it for hide and seek, and then we grew up and stopped going. Two deputies moved forward with a caution I'd only seen on TV. The dog pulled and whined. The sheriff raised his voice, steady and audible but not shouting. He announced who they were. He asked anyone inside to talk. No answer. He knocked. I stood in the trees shaking, my hand on the rough bark like it was the only solid thing holding me upright. A bird called once and then went silent, and then I heard a sound from inside that I still dream about. A shuffling and a very small sound, like someone tried to swallow a cry. It happened fast and slow at the same time. One deputy turned the handle, the door stuck and then gave. Another deputy moved in. There was a shout, not a scream, more like a command. Something fell. I heard the scrape of a chair or a box. Then I heard my son's voice, muffled, the way a voice sounds under a blanket. They were talking to him in calm, gentle voices. The sheriff called back over his shoulder that Ethan was there. He said it like a simple fact. We've got him. And my legs finally remembered how to bend. When they brought Ethan out, he clung to the deputy like a small animal after rain. His face was streaked with dirt. His socks were muddy. He was trembling hard but not crying. He pressed his face into the deputy's shoulder and pulled back just enough to see me, and then he reached for me like he had when he was little. He wouldn't let go of my neck. I felt his heartbeat against my jaw. The man inside the cabin came out in handcuffs. He was in his 30s, maybe 40s, with a scraggly beard and tired eyes that didn't look at us. He wore a plain jacket and flat shoes. They sat him on the step. He didn't fight. He didn't say anything loudly. He just looked down. He looked like anyone you might pass at a small store and forget a minute later. That was the worst part of his face, that there was nothing to memorize. They asked me to take Ethan to the farmhouse. A paramedic checked him. No injuries beyond scrapes. He wouldn't talk at first. He wouldn't even take the hot chocolate my grandmother offered. He sat on my lap and stared at the window as if someone might be looking in. After a while, in a small voice, he said he woke up early and went to say good morning to the scarecrow. That's how he put it. He noticed the hat was on the ground. He went to pick it up. Someone stepped out from behind the tall grass where we hadn't weeded yet. A man spoke softly. Ethan tried to run, but the man grabbed him under the arms and carried him. He lost his shoe. The man smelled like old smoke. He said the man didn't hit him, didn't shout, just held him hard and told him to be quiet while they walked. The cabin was dark. There was a blanket and a chair. The man told Ethan to sit, then to lie down. He didn't tie him. He didn't touch him beyond that. Ethan said the man looked tired. That word stuck with me. The sheriff talked to us later that afternoon. He told us that the cabin had signs that somebody had been living in it for a while. Food wrappers, a rolled-up mattress, a backpack, an old phone with no service, a small battery lantern, and a map of the area. The man had no ID on him. They would figure out who he was. They didn't tell us his motives. They couldn't. I asked the question anyway. Why? The sheriff shook his head the way a person does when a word is stuck behind their teeth. He said sometimes people drift. Sometimes they plan things we don't fully understand. He promised us they would look for any history, any pattern. He spoke like a person with daughters and a calendar that suddenly mattered more. We stayed at the farmhouse 2 more nights because Ethan wouldn't leave my side, and my grandparents needed us. We added a floodlight over the back steps and a lock on the gate we never locked before. The scarecrow came down. Ethan didn't want it anymore, and I didn't either. The pumpkins went a little soft around the edges that week because we didn't go out to the rows much. My grandfather admitted he'd been feeling worse that morning and hadn't gone out at all. He cried once, a small private sound I wasn't supposed to hear because he blamed himself. I told him it wasn't his fault. I said it again and again. I don't know if it helped. The sheriff called us a few days later to say the man had been identified. No address. Some minor arrests years back. A person who moved town to town, seasonal work when he could get it, cash, nothing steady. He'd been seen walking the back roads the week before, sleeping rough, picking through a dumpster behind the old gas station. No evidence of him following us or watching for days, no notes or plans, nothing to show up at our house later. If that comforted me, it did so only a little. It would be neater for a story to say we learned something clear, the man's intention, a reason, an explanation that made the world feel organized. That didn't happen. What we had was a line of prints, a scarecrow with a hat that wouldn't sit straight, a shoe in the dirt, and a door opening onto the kind of small room you don't think about until you have to. What we had was luck and neighbors and a fast response and a dog that wanted a scent more than anything else in the world. What we had was our son's heartbeat against my jaw and his small hand gripping my shirt. We went home at the end of the month, the back of our car full of decorations and a few pumpkins we didn't carve. We put one on our apartment balcony and let it sit until it caved in on one side. Every time I took out the trash, I looked at it and thought of how quickly something can go soft and wrong if you don't check it for a few days. Ethan slept on a mattress on our floor for a while. He woke up sometimes at 6:43 a.m., a time his body seemed to remember, and crawled under the blanket between us. In December, we started to sleep normally again. In January, he slept in his own room. There are 2 things I still do that I didn't before. The first is that I always walk the fence lines where I am, even if it's a park or a school field. I look for low wires and easy openings. I look for paths no one uses and prints where feet shouldn't be. The second is that I never put up a scarecrow. It's silly, maybe, to blame a pile of straw and a hat, but there's something about the idea of a fake person guarding what matters that I can't stand anymore. If something's going to stand watch, it should be real eyes. Halloween came and went that year, and we didn't do much. We turned off our porch light and watched a movie with Ethan. It all started, as so many things do in high school, with a group chat. It was the first week of October, and the air was just starting to get that crisp, cool edge to it. Halloween was on everyone's mind, and for my group of friends, it was practically a religious holiday. There was I, Liam, the worrier and planner. There was Chloe, who put on a tough act but was secretly the most easily scared person I knew. There was Ben, the logical, no-nonsense guy who thought everything had a rational explanation. And finally there was Sam, who was quiet and observant, but fiercely loyal. We'd been best friends since middle school. Every year we threw a massive Halloween party. It was our tradition. So I did what I always did. I opened my phone, created a new group chat, and added the 3 of them. I named it Halloween Havoc 2019. The first messages were exactly what you'd expect. I started it off by saying, "All right guys, it's that time of year. Party planning starts now." Chloe replied almost instantly, "Yes, I'm thinking we go all out this year. Fog machines, the works." Ben, ever the practical one, chimed in, saying, "Let's just make sure we have a budget first. Remember what happened last year with the 10-foot inflatable spider?" Sam's response was simple, "I'm in." We went back and forth for about an hour, debating themes, snacks, and who was in charge of the playlist. It was normal, fun, and exciting. We were in our own little bubble, completely oblivious. Then I noticed it. A 5th member had been added to the chat. I checked the participants list. It was just a string of numbers, no name attached. I typed into the chat, who's this new number? Ben suggested, probably just one of you using a new phone or something. He then asked Chloe directly, is this you? Chloe quickly denied it, typing back, nope, not me. Sam added that he hadn't added anyone. We all paused. I figured it had to be a glitch, some weird bug in the messaging app. I was about to just remove the number and forget about it, but then a message from them appeared. It read, this sounds fun. It was simple, but it felt off. Ben, ever the skeptic, took charge. He typed, haha, very funny. Who is this? One of your cousins, Liam. I replied that I had no idea who this was. Chloe was already creeped out, writing, just kick them out. It's creepy. Before I could, another message came through from an unknown number. This time it was directed at Chloe. Don't be scared, Chloe. It's just a party, the message read. Chloe's replies came fast. How do you know my name? She typed, followed by, this isn't funny anymore. We tried to brush it off. Maybe it was a friend of a friend who got our numbers mixed up. But how would they know Chloe's name? Ben suggested it was a lucky guess, a common name, but we all knew that was a stretch. Over the next few days, the person remained silent. We tried to ignore their presence in the chat, continuing our party planning, but it was like having someone standing over your shoulder, listening to everything you say. The real terror began a week later. We were all at our usual hangout spot, a specific bench at a local park overlooking the duck pond. We were laughing about something stupid a teacher had said in class. Later that night, back in the group chat, we got a notification. It was a photo from an unknown number. The picture was of the four of us sitting on that exact bench, laughing. It was taken from a distance, from behind a large oak tree. The angle was voyeuristic, secretive. We were being watched. My blood ran cold. I immediately called Chloe. She picked up on the first ring, her voice trembling. Did you see it, Liam? Did you see the picture? She asked. I told her I saw it, my own voice barely a whisper. Someone was there. Someone was watching us, I said. Ben tried to rationalize it in the chat, saying, it's probably just someone from school playing a prank. They saw us at the park and thought it would be funny. It's a dumb, tasteless joke. But the jokes got worse. The next message was for Ben. The text read, still think it's a joke, Ben? You should be more careful when you cross the street on Elm. You almost didn't see that blue sedan today. Ben didn't reply. I knew why. We all knew he'd had a close call with a car after school. He'd told us about it right when he got home, but he hadn't mentioned it in the group chat. There was no way for this person to know that detail unless they had been there, watching his every move. The messages became more personal, more pointed. The unknown person knew things. They knew about Sam's secret crush on a girl in our chemistry class. They knew I was terrified of failing my calculus exam. They knew Chloe had a recurring nightmare about being trapped in small spaces, a secret she had only ever told me. They would drop these details into the conversation casually, twisting our secrets into little weapons of fear. We were prisoners in our own group chat. We were too scared to leave, but too scared to talk. We tried blocking the number, but it didn't work. It was like it had rooted itself into the chat, impossible to remove. Ben finally snapped. He wrote, that's it. I'm done. I'm leaving this chat. This is stupid. He removed himself from the group. For a moment, there was a sense of relief. Maybe it was that simple. Maybe we could all just leave. A minute later, I got a private message from Ben. My phone is freaking out, he said. It's opening and closing apps on its own. Back in the main chat, the unknown number posted a new photo. It was a picture of Ben. He was fast asleep in his bed, the covers pulled up to his chin, his face peaceful. The photo was dark, grainy, and clearly taken from the foot of his bed, from inside his room. The timestamp on the photo was from 3:14 a.m. the previous night. Ben was added back to the group, though not by any of us. A single message followed the photo. It said, you can't leave. That was the breaking point. This wasn't a prank anymore. This was something dangerous. We met up at my house the next day, not texting, not calling, just showing up. The fear was palpable. We sat in my living room, all of us staring at our phones as if they were venomous snakes. We have to go to the police, Chloe said, her voice shaking. And say what? Ben shot back, his face pale. That's some anonymous number sending us creepy texts. They'll think we're a bunch of paranoid kids. They won't take it seriously until something actually happens. He was right. We had no proof of a real crime, just a series of escalating threats that felt deeply personal but were ultimately just words and pictures on a screen. Sam, who had been quiet the whole time, finally spoke up. He said calmly, "Let's try to find out who the number belongs to. There are websites for that." It felt like a long shot, but it was something. We huddled around my laptop and typed the number into a reverse lookup site. We paid the $5 fee and waited as the progress bar crawled across the screen. The results page loaded. A name came up, along with an address, but it was the notes section at the bottom that made our hearts stop. The number registered to a cellular device was reported stolen on May 17, 2017. 3.5 years ago, the phone was reported stolen in our very own town. The name of the original owner meant nothing to us. It was a dead end. Whoever was doing this was using a ghost phone, a digital phantom that couldn't be traced back to them. For the next week, the chat was silent. The silence was almost worse than the messages. Every notification made us jump. Every shadow seemed menacing. The party was in 2 days, and we had a decision to make. Chloe looked exhausted when she said, "We should cancel it." I surprised myself when I replied, "No, we can't. If we cancel it, we're letting them win. We're letting them control us. We'll just be extra careful. My house. Only people we know and trust get an invitation, and they have to show it at the door. No masks until you're inside." Ben and Sam agreed. It felt like we were taking back some control, even if it was just an illusion. We spent the next day sending out invitations, emphasizing that it was a private, invite-only event. Halloween night arrived. My house was decorated, the music was playing, and people started to show up. For a few hours, things felt almost normal. We were surrounded by friends, lost in the music and the laughter. We checked our phones obsessively, but the Halloween Havoc chat remained dead. As the night wore on and the party began to thin out, I started to relax. Maybe it was over. Maybe the stalker had gotten bored and moved on. It was just after midnight, and only our core group and a handful of other friends remained, cleaning up and talking in the living room. That's when the doorbell rang. We all froze. Nobody else was supposed to be coming. I went to the door and looked through the peephole. A guy was standing on my porch. He was wearing a plain black hoodie and a simple white expressionless plastic mask. It covered his entire face. "Who is it?" Chloe whispered from behind me. "I don't know," I said. "Maybe someone's ride?" I opened the door a crack. I asked, "Can I help you?" The man didn't say anything. He just pushed the door open, forcing me backward. He stepped inside, and the last few people at the party fell silent. He wasn't a guest. The vibe was all wrong. He reached into his hoodie pocket and pulled out a knife, phones and wallets on the table. Now he rasped, his voice low and gravelly. It wasn't a voice I recognized. My mind raced. Was this him? Was this the person from the chat? After all the psychological terror, was this how it ended? A violent, physical confrontation? A wave of pure, unadulterated fear washed over me. This was real. This was happening. But then, as he took a step toward Chloe, something shifted. I saw Sam out of the corner of my eye. He wasn't scared, he was focused. His posture changed, his body coiled like a spring. I'd known Sam for years, and I knew he took kung fu classes a few nights a week, but I'd always thought of it as just a hobby, like playing video games or collecting comics. I'd never seen it in action. Before the robber could even register what was happening, Sam moved. It was a blur of motion. He stepped forward, not back. He used one hand to parry the man's knife hand, and with his other hand, he struck the man's wrist at a precise point. There was a sharp crack. The robber cried out in pain, and the knife clattered to the hardwood floor. Sam didn't stop. He delivered a swift kick to the side of the man's knee, and he crumpled to the ground. Ben, snapping out of his shock, lunged forward and helped Sam pin the man down. "Liam, call the police!" Sam yelled, his voice clear and commanding. I fumbled for my phone and dialed 911. The police were there in what felt like seconds. They cuffed the man and pulled off his mask. He was a complete stranger. None of us had ever seen him before in our lives. He was just a local lowlife who had been watching the neighborhood, saw a party, and thought it would be an easy score. An opportunist. As they searched him, we all waited, holding our breath. One of the officers pulled a phone from his pocket. It was a cheap, cracked smartphone. It wasn't the ghost phone. The man was arrested and taken away. The police took our statements commending Sam for his quick thinking and bravery. My parents came home. The night eventually ended. We never heard from the unknown number again. The group chat is still on our phones, a digital graveyard of our terror. We never found out who it was. Was it just some twisted individual who got a thrill out of tormenting teenagers? Did they plan to show up at the party themselves, but someone else beat them to it? Or was the robbery the most terrifying coincidence of our lives? We'll never know. The man who broke into my house is in jail, but the person who broke into our lives, who knew our deepest fears and watched us from the shadows, is still out there somewhere. And that is a horror that no martial arts move or police officer can ever truly save you from.